Namaste. Hello, everyone. This is Rebecca Cummings with Rebecca Cummings Yoga, Integrative Yoga, and Somatic Health Coaching. I hope you're all doing amazing. I honestly have just been feeling on fire lately. I've been going through so much learning and unlearning and really just growing a lot with myself and in my relationships with people. I've taken a huge step back actually from a lot of my social media just because I wanted to actually focus on my face-to-face relationships with people. Anyways, all of that said, I love expressing myself, sharing, and I've had so many rich ideas lately coming to me about what I want to talk about in my blogs and everything else. And I've been continuing with my studies with somatic experiencing, and it's really changed me in so many ways that I did not foresee. And I've just been feeling a lot of contentment and just a lot of the things that I've been learning over the years are really digesting in my body somatically. And so anyways, I wanted to discuss the topic today, rethinking attachment. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because over 10 years ago, when I started to study in Buddhist practice, I started actually in Tibetan Buddhist tradition in New York City, where I grew up. And I remember when I learned about the topic of you're the one who's responsible for your happiness, and that attachment means suffering. And I can even feel right now somatically as I talk about that, how much that impacted me the years following, and a lot of actually the dysfunction that created for me years following in my life. Particularly around relationships. So when I first heard that I was responsible for my own happiness, I immediately felt very anxious, because I felt like that meant that I was somehow responsible for, what's the word? I somehow felt like that meant I had to figure this all out on my own, that I was going to be alone the rest of my life, and that this kind of like born alone, die alone kind of thing. If you really think about that statement, you're born alone, is that really true? I'm pretty sure there are people who were there when you were born. There's probably a whole team of people, generally speaking, that were there when you were born. So anyways, I've really come to understand attachment in a different way. And when I went to college, I went to Naropa University, which is a Buddhist-inspired university in Boulder, Colorado. I moved from Brooklyn, New York to Boulder, Colorado. It was like the biggest culture shock in my life. So when I went to school there, I noticed that there was a lot of misunderstanding, in my opinion, about what attachment is. Now, if you look at actual attachment theory from Western psychology standpoint, we need healthy attachment, right? There's actually, they have ideas around neurotic attachment, anxious attachment, secure attachment, and the ideal is to have secure attachment with other people. But what was happening was that because of my own background and my own training and growing up, I'm not talking about school, I'm talking about my actual, what I saw growing up, I didn't learn necessarily how to be in healthy relationship. And I was constantly going to the phrase that's very common, the hardware store for bread. So I was going to try to get my needs met from people that they couldn't be met, which would then confirmed to me that people were not to be trustworthy, and that attachment was bad and wrong, and that I shouldn't be connected with other people, because if I am connected with other people, then I'm going to be disappointed, and if I'm disappointed, then I'm going to be hurt, and then if I'm hurt, then I'm suffering, and suffering is bad. And so when you're a Buddhist, you basically are trying to live a life that's helping to end suffering. And if there's this, okay, let me back it up a little bit. So I think there's a reason why so many people are drawn to some of the Eastern philosophies who grew up in Western culture. And I think part of the reason for that, and this also is tied into my work with Livia Shapiro, and she she runs applied psychology for yogis, and she observed that many of the individuals that came to yoga, and I'm also been a yoga teacher for many years, that many of the people that come to yoga actually have insecure attachment from the Western psychological philosophy around that. And so but then they come to yoga and they find that they have a place of solace and refuge and form, and even just the way that people position their mats and their blocks. And she has a whole body of understanding about this. So I really recommend that you check out her work if you're interested in some of her theories of psychology as it connects with yoga. But then when she was talking about that, I think that's also true in the Buddhist circles as well, that oftentimes people come to Buddhist practice because of they were raised in insecure attachment and have insecure attachment or anxious attachment or disorganized attachment. And then they find Buddhism and it kind of validates and even to a certain point enables this lack of healthy connection with other people. So anyways, I think now how I see being afraid of connecting, being afraid of attaching or becoming attached to other people is really about learning how to get my needs met where they can get met. Because in truth, we are social beings, and there's even studies in health psychology that it's actually exercise and nutrition, all those things are great, but actually the greatest predictor for health and long-term health and longevity is actually relationships. Having a few people that you can count on, and it doesn't have to be very many, right? It may just be like 2 or 3 people. It may just be, at least 2 or 3 would be, ideal. It's not necessarily helpful to have one person be the only, be your one and only support system. But I had to really learn how to get my needs met again where they can actually be met. So this is where it set me on this whole healing journey around understanding codependency, understanding how to become attracted to people that were emotionally available. And I really came into, when I went through my traumas in relationships, it was really easy for me to get into all men are this way. This is how men are. And making these kind of vast generalizations when really the reality was that there was so much dysregulation happening within me that all of that was being mirrored back to me by the relationships that I was in and kind of the choices that I made and the choices within relationships that I made. So in this video, I'm just proposing that we rethink attachment, not only in how we view attachment in spiritual circles, but then also how we can bridge this gap between what is unhealthy attachment and codependency. Codependency primarily being defined as our happiness and our state of being being directly affected by the choices and actions of others. So let's say someone's not doing what I think they should be doing and I'm getting all crazy about it. That's usually a sign of enmeshment and codependency. But instead, how can I learn about connection, where I can accept people where they are and the journey that they're on, but I can stand in my truth and say what I think and feel. And even if they're, this is like a whole rabbit hole in and of itself. I can't do this in like a 15-minute video, seriously. But anyways, all of this to say that I really have a much different perspective about attachment, particularly as it relates to in Dharma and as it relates to how I've been able to learn greater ways to regulate my system and to have nourishing relationships that actually bring me to greater truths within my spiritual path. And so I think, if you want to live a life where you never get hurt and you never have to, have an intimate relationship with someone else because you're afraid of attachment, then fine, more power to you. But I know for me that my goal in life is not only just to be happy. My goal in life is not only to not have my heart broken, and that actually having my heart broken puts me in deep touch with my own humanity. And so if that means that I love someone very deeply and they die, they get sick, we're all going to get sick, we're all going to get sick and die. That it's not my goal to disconnect myself from other people so I never have to feel that pain. Because guess what? That sense of loneliness and isolation is its own kind of pain. And I truly don't believe we were made to be isolated islands unto ourselves. Nor do I think we were made to be isolated islands with just one other person. And I'm not in like a polyamorous relationship or anything like that. But I do, and that's not a judgment to say people who are doing that, that's again a whole other video. But I don't place all of my needs just on one person, and I also go where I can get my needs actually met. And I don't paint the red flags white anymore. I don't say, I don't like if I see a pattern in someone who is constantly I don't know, saying one thing but doing another, I don't write that off anymore. I pay attention to those signs. I pay attention because people treat me the way that I allow them to treat me, right? It's up to me to set appropriate boundaries. But again, this doesn't mean that it's anyone's fault. If you haven't learned how to set appropriate boundaries in your relationships, if you haven't learned what it means to have truly intimate connecting experiences with other people, how can you do what you cannot do, right? So this is what I mean, where I feel like I've been in so much a deep unlearning process, and actually my own relationship with my husband has taught me a lot about that. A lot of working with within relationships as a spiritual path. And I don't know if it's for everyone. And there's, no matter what, you're going to be in relationships. Like, you can't avoid that, right? Like, you have to learn how to be in relationships. Like, no matter what, like, you can't run from it forever or you will just die. Like, you need other people. We need other people. So anyways, I don't know if you got anything from this video today. I'm just offering it as a question that we rethink in spiritual communities and spiritual circles, how we define attachment, and are we using attachment and our translations of Buddha Dharma or any other path for that matter. That's the path that I am most closely connected to in the last 10 years, but in any other path, how are we using our understanding of attachment and even our understanding of, let's say, suffering and the suffering of life to further isolate people and make them and create even more suffering? Or are we using it to help our own hearts to become more open to others and to really listen to one another, and using that understanding of no matter what the path is or, whatever your experiences are, to build greater connection with one another? So all of that said, thank you so much for watching, and please stay connected with me. Feel free to like, share, subscribe to my channel, whatever you would like. Okay, namaste.